Welcome to the Brothers Sinatra podcast, the only podcast featuring two swinging brothers talking about Netflix movies.
Oh, that's a good old boy. Oh, wait. Old boy? Oh, no.
I'm Jack Sinatra.
And I'm Tyler Sinatra. And
we're
the Brothers
Sinatra. We are no longer the ones steering this ship.
Nope, sorry.
That may seem random, but believe me, it was a big, impactful moment in the film that we're going to talk about today, which is The Last House. The last one. There were no other houses, Tyler.
Not the one on the left.
Oh,
no, not that one.
Yeah.
Completely different house.
This one was actually at the end of a cul-de-sac, it appeared.
Yeah, so there's no real left. It's
I guess it all depends on your perspective, you know. And also, to be fair, not to give too much away, but we don't spend a lot of time outside of this particular cul-de-sac, so it's hard to say, if there are other houses. And, I would say that I did see, even out the window, some other houses, so maybe it's more like The Last Household. But, we'll continue to split hairs over this as we actually get into it.
Final House.
Sure. Final House.
Final House.
You got to listen on Spotify, to figure out which one is going to be the last house. All right? This house is here, this house is there. Which is going to be the last one? Listen on Spotify, on Amazon, on Apple Podcasts to figure it out in real time. Okay?
If you don't want to do that, you could always check social medias, the
Yes.
Instagrams, the Facebooks, the TikToks, the YouTubes. You could do all of that stuff. We've
all
got
of
them.
those.
We
do
have
it
them.
multiple times a day on each one. Create new accounts, new Gmail accounts to go in and, hit those buttons, either positive
Gmail
or
accounts
negative.
are free.
Do
you know how many?
matter.
You can make multiple accounts and like all of our content multiple times a day with those separate accounts, and that would be totally fair game.
And that's totally a strategy that we've never used in any way to artificially inflate our numbers because we don't have the time.
I've never once created an entire separate Spotify account to play one track of an album that I've released over and over again. I've never done that.
Nobody does that. And we haven't done that, all right?
We haven't.
And if you're out there and you're one of those people in Singapore that's got a billion phones and you just kind of have those TikTok farms, go ahead, farm us up, okay?
Farm us.
Farm
please.
us up. We got the fertilizer, all right?
Yeah. We got the brother milk.
We got the brother milk.
We have
enough
brother milk
has
for
really
everyone.
been popping off too.
Yeah.
People are really excited about the brother milk, and the
biology button.
Oh,
We're
sure.
bringing the biology button back to the website, folks.
You're
going to be
back.
so surprised.
It's taken a little longer than I thought it would be to round off the corners. You would think with all these AI advancements that it would be a lot easier to do front-end design, but Uncle Enzo refuses to use the AI technology.
Yeah, we hit that Enzo. We hit that Enzo AI funnel. That's what we hit, and unfortunately, we got to just wait for our information to sift through.
He's a bottleneck, but he is our uncle, so you got to respect him, okay? And I have the utmost respect for our dear Uncle Enzo. I wonder what Enzo would have done, in this film, Tyler. Especially when he couldn't go to veryentertaining.biz and kind of spiff up the page. What would he be spending his time on? I mean, he does love a good classic car, a good
He would have rebuilt
car.
that car. The car would have been rebuilt day 2.
That would have been absolutely. Yeah, that would have been task number 1. It's like, dog,
Uncle Enzo
you can go and, do your business over here, but I'm going to be working on this car.
Yeah.
Kids, figure it out, all right?
I have free time for the first time I don't have to set aside my weekends to work on my cars, and I can just work on them every 2 days. 2 days his car is done, and he's out of the building day 4 because he needs to get to the market to get his prosciutto, Jackie.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what's happening.
He's got to get the prosciutto. He's got to get the mutts, okay? He's got to go and just be about town. He's a man about town, wearing fine straw hats at times, varying lengths of sleeves depending on the season. But we're not here to talk about Uncle Enzo's fashion, fine as it might be. You stop it. I know what you're doing.
You started it. You said straw hats.
I didn't
It's
mean
not
to
my
send
fault.
up a signal,
It's
Tyler.
not my fault.
They didn't invent straw hats, all
You
right?
scratched the back of my brain and it like forces itself forward.
We're talking about The Last House today, if that wasn't clear. Which I think it should have been.
Not the Pirate King. We're not
No.
talking about the future king of the pirates. No.
Although, we could talk about how maybe in a sequel you could have that type of an intersection at a later time. Maybe this is the inception of that entire universe, Tyler,
This is
think about that.
Netflix trying to bring one of its own properties into the One Piece universe.
Man. It's like the Harlem Globetrotters getting into Scooby-Doo. We got to mix and mash all this stuff together as best we can.
I can't wait until we get the One Piece, Harlem Globetrotters, Johnny Bravo, Scooby-Doo, and Last House crossover episode.
I'm telling you, you put the Harlem Globetrotters in just about any property and it immediately elevates it to another level. I never had a bad time when the Harlem Globetrotters were coming in, to solve some kind of a groovy mystery or otherwise aid, a group of teenagers in whatever quest that they were on that particular day.
Occasionally foil a magician and his pet kangaroo from robbing a bank. Or I think maybe it's diamonds. I forget.
It happens.
That's like the first episode of the Hanna-Barbera Globetrotters. That's like actually what... It doesn't matter. I love Hanna-Barbera cartoons, folks. We don't have to talk anymore about it. Or I'm going to be turned into something funky, and we're not going to like it anymore.
Oh, no. Let's get into The Last House, and we're going to start by just talking about some high-level, why does this film exist? Where did we see it? The Sinatra Stats is what we're getting into. And just to kind of lay some groundwork here, The Last House came out just a couple of weeks ago, and I first became aware of it through a viral social media campaign by way of a billboard that I assume was in Los Angeles or something, where they had a guy just kind of living in a living room setup.
Yeah, I saw that too.
In a billboard. So I was like, oh, if this billboard is anything to go by, then I bet this film is very intriguing and interesting. And, we'll find out how right or wrong I was about that. But some interesting things about this. Number one, it's a science fiction thriller. Okay, I think that's a pretty accurate description. If you watch the trailer, there was some, weird stuff going on. You didn't really know exactly what's happening. So there is a small mystery component. There's a bit of science fiction in here. Or fantasy. It's, this is one of those movies where I think it's hard to draw the line. And is it science fiction or is it fantasy? Because do they actually talk about the science of what's occurring? Is there science theory behind what they're doing? In some ways, yes. In other ways, not.
I think they're bridging the gap by saying, technically, the reveal, before we get to spoilers, could be in some way a scientific finding.
Yeah, but also from an engineering perspective, if you consider that one of the sciences, that certainly you could say is science fiction. But I think there are some possible fantasy components that would, fall outside of science fiction.
I honestly would consider this myth or fantasy before I would say science fiction.
They also do literally discuss mythological creatures in the context of this thing.
I think science fiction implies some sort of Star Wars. For those in the know, Star Wars down the line George Lucas's original idea, and he's on record as saying this. The Force is explained later on in scientific means. If George Lucas had his way throughout the entire... No, he shouldn't have done what he planned on doing. But the midichlorian stuff ends up being an entire race or something of microbiology. And they are so the Force is actual living things and it's part of you, whatever. So it is that is technically science fiction. We are using technology. There is an explanation, be it fictional.
I don't think you should be able to invent your own science to make science fiction.
But I think the delineation between making it science fiction and having it be folklore or myth is just as you were saying, they're trying to explain it scientifically. There is if it's made up, there is an explanation where they're like, the Doc Brown, time travel's not, but I made the flux capacitor, and because flux capacitor, lightning, 8,000 gigawatts, we can go back in time. Science fiction. No explanation of how we go back in time or all of these other things. It's a fable. It's like, we're doing it, it's magic, we're not gonna get into the details of how, like the mechanism of how this works.
There's a major mechanism here that's completely unexplained and might as well be magic, which is kind of
that's what
why
I'm
splitting hairs about it.
Yeah.
But we are so early into the Sinatra Stats, let's keep going. This is directed by Louis Leterrier, who I last encountered myself in the first Marvel Incredible Hulk film under the MCU that had not Mr. Ruffalo, but it had, what's his face from Fight Club?
Edward Norton. You're not talking about the Eric Bana one. You're talking about the
first one in the MCU. So this is
the
not
MCU.
the Eric Bana one. This is not the Lou Ferrigno one.
That's the first one that I went back to. I was like, oh, wait, the first
that
movie?
was Ang Lee's Hulk, whatever. And then 4 years later or 5 years later, they came out with Louis Leterrier's, and it had it had Edward Norton, and then it had Liv Tyler was the main,
and then
love
Tim
interest.
Roth.
Tim Roth was the Abomination. Yeah,
love Tim Roth.
Yeah, and you had William Hurt in that thing. I mean, you had some interesting stuff going on in that film. Not a bad film, but, Edward Norton wanted too much creative control, so they booted him and got the Ruffalo. So that's the last time that I think I encountered one of this guy's films. This was written by Matthew Robinson, who I assume is related to Tim Robinson, which makes me laugh. No, it's probably a different guy. It stars Greta Lee and Wagner Moura. And Greta Lee, I got to be honest, I know about, and I've really only seen in a show that is like a Hollywood show. So it was Greta Lee playing Greta Lee. I haven't really seen any of her actual filmography, but I know about Greta Lee. And then Wagner Moura, I mainly know from Narcos, which I watched the first season of, but didn't really continue after that. And then I just know of him. He was in, I think, the movie Secret Agents. That was like a big kind of award season film in the last cycle. So a very well-known guy. He's about 50 years old, so he's got kind of a late-stage pop. And I think his early stuff is mostly in Portuguese because he's Brazilian. So, there's that kind of gap where he wasn't as known to American audiences. But now he's kind of in this position where he's like Pedro Pascal too. And it's funny because they were both in Narcos, but they're kind of a similar phenotype, as the kids say on social media.
Is that what they're saying? They're saying phenotype now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, mostly to talk about, just trying to categorize women's looks, but I think it applies here as well. And then, we went over that. Just a bunch of people involved in this thing. It came out on Netflix. Anytime something comes out on Netflix and it's not in theaters, as we learned last week, you gotta question why. You kind of know immediately that it's not intended for the awards, but it doesn't mean it's going to be bad. There have been Netflix movies that have come out that have been, I would say, at least like to a 66% or above on their, on my personal enjoyment rating. So I'm always interested to see these Netflix movies that come out, and also this one was at number 1 for quite a while. I don't think it is anymore. I want to say it's probably like 2 or 3. There was some like true crime Charles Manson thing that I think came out and probably booted it out by now. But for a week or so, it was riding high. This thing is 112 minutes long, on the long side. Too long? We'll talk about it. And so this is a movie that, is something that when we were looking for stuff to do, we like to look at the top 10s. This happened to be right up there. So we wanted to see what America was watching. And boy, did we.
Yeah.
So anything else to say at a high level, just from a, cast standpoint, any other experiences or production notes from you, Tyler?
Well, Jackie, I'm just really wondering what phenotype you think they are. Do you think he's like The bear, the dog, the eagle, or the reptilian? I'm wondering which one you think.
I don't get that deep into it. I just think that him and Pedro Pascal are the same one, and that's as far as I would take it.
So you think that they're both foxes? Oh, no,
Perhaps.
that's only for the ladies.
But you would need
cat, fox, deer,
jawline.
bunny, or bear, dog, eagle, reptilian. I think those are the ones. And they're like gendered. It doesn't matter.
I don't know. Latino,
I don't really look
square
at...
jaw, you know. Just
I have no idea.
Good
They're
looking guys.
Point. That's the thing that we got to remember.
And I like his
hot.
accent too. I think the accent, maybe in some ways puts him over Pascal for me. Also, Pascal is so overexposed. It's just nice to see Wagner Moura popping up in a couple things.
I take that Pascal's wager. Anyway, keep going.
So here's an interesting note. Kingsley Benadia was originally cast in the Wagner Moura slot in this thing. So that would have been a slightly different film.
Different movie.
Yeah. Yeah, so you got to wonder, what that would have been like had that occurred. And then this movie was originally called, and I don't know how they would have marketed this or how you would have said it, which is probably why they shifted off of it. But it was originally called 11817, which was their address. So, the last house is where they ended
house.
You could have
House
just lock.
You could have just said House 1187. Do you know what I mean? House and then the
Well,
number.
there was another number there, though. There were 5 numbers.
What was it? There were 5?
11817. 11817. Yeah.
Then just put the number next to
Tough
it.
one.
Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Could have changed the number.
That's their own
it's
fault.
It's a bad number.
For making the, they could,
Why
it's
did they make it that
arbitrary
number?
what number was on was on the house. Why did they do that? Anyway.
So we'll talk about
We'll
talk about the Rotten Tomatoes of it all in a bit. Maybe after we go through our Sinatra summaries and our positives. But yeah, let's get to it. Let's get to the Sinatra summaries.
Probably
Give me
should
your
do a
interpretation.
Spoiler alert, Jackie. We should probably tell everybody we're about to spoil it. Alert!
Spoiler alert, everybody.
Spoilers.
We're about to talk about everything that happens in the last house. How? Why was it the last house? Who was in that house?
Who could say?
What happened to the other houses?
You're going to find out
was
now.
The house? Did the house have a sound structure? Was it, a farmhouse? Hey, well, I guess we did say there's spoilers. All right, Tyler, what is
already
your
said spoilers.
Sinatra summary?
Oh, it's coming at you hot and Sinatra steamy.
Whoa.
Anyway, a former engineer, now unemployed fishing dad, sees a bad storm on the horizon while fishing instead of finding a new job in his field, and decides to make his way home to his family. He has a wife, 2 kids, and a dog, whose old age is immediately cited and repeated throughout. As he arrives home, we get a taste of their family life. The bills are piling up, the house is falling apart, the children are in good spirits, but ultimately, our family needs more time together, and that is clear. Cue the COVID allegory in the form of, spoilers again, the classic mythical squid cryptid, the Kraken, but with hydrokinesis. While we don't see them until the end of the movie, these Krakai, which I think is the plural of Kraken, use their water manipulation, definitely Krakai, it's definitely that, and they make sort of a rain shield around the houses with the storm, and apparently coats the people's homes in an unbreakable water barrier so nobody can leave or open the doors or the windows. Then, a ton of things happen in like 30 minutes of the movie. They try about 10% of the things that I would try to do to get out. They communicate with the neighbors via window signs. They establish the child daughter has a better understanding of what's happening around them than anybody else. They see neighbors die of starvation out of their own window. Ooh, an inciting incident glimpse of someone being taken in the night, and then killing the dog that they didn't need to be in the movie in the first place. A few emotional breakdowns, and then all the pieces are finally there for our family to hunker down, hide, and move on to the title cards indicating increasing increments of time, finally getting to years later. 5 years locked in the house. We're fishing for wildlife via the open chimney hatch and engineered traps on a makeshift reel, fishing for like random rodent wildlife. We're growing our own produce. We're ready for the final act of the film. A kraken finally sees them in the house one day, opens the door, comes in, salinates all of their drinking and irrigation water, killing their plants and taking away their drinking water. Ugh, what are we going to do now? But he leaves without finding anybody. But now we're desperate. The girl gets sick because we get a ferret in the trap, and she don't want to kill the ferret. She thinks it's nice. She gets bit on the hand, so now we need some medicine, okay? So we're completely have our backs to the wall. We need to get out of this house. So we need to go to the dentist neighbor to get that we happen to know is our neighbor who's a dentist. He has antibiotics, of course, because dentists keep antibiotics in the house. So let's go through the sewer, because we never thought how our house, if it were sealed, how we're flushing the toilets and our running water is actually running as it had been throughout most of the movie. But we never thought how it was getting out if it was completely sealed in, even though our father is an engineer. But we find out that we can get out through the sewers. Mom goes, gets the medicine, but leads another kraken back to the house. They block the sewer entrance just in time to get Mom back in, but keep the squid out. But now they know where they are. The family is given way too much time to prep the house for a mythical being with superpowers, and they fashion a trap. Very Freddie Jones from Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. They trap the kraken in the house while it's being flooded by kraken superpower hydrokinesis, and the dad threatens the kraken with a knife. Then he has a hostility flashback, realizing that the only thing that he's ever done to the krakens is be hostile, or anything he's ever seen done to the krakens has been be hostile. And then he decides to cut the rope, let the kraken go. The kraken thinks that's pretty cool, and decides to let them out of the house. And then he even tells all of his kraken buddies that these dudes are pretty cool. The family looks out onto the horizon and sees that the entire world is flooded, and they grab their neighbor Chekhov's boat, and they sail into Waterworld 2. And that's
right
the
in.
end of the movie.
And Kevin Costner is just off
Kevin
screen.
Kevin Costner's just waiting there for him.
Peeing in the machine.
Like, can't wait. They're bringing it back.
Your summaries have gotten a lot longer over the past few weeks.
This one was 2 hours, Jackie. The thing is, I was contemplating making it like one sentence long and being like, Kraken's lock family in house, and we have a COVID trauma response and eventually get out through the power of friendship. Could have said that, but they put so many random scenes in this movie that I felt like I had to just sort of be like, this is a scene. This is also a scene, but I don't know why it's a scene. And I also had to mention the dog for sure.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. All right, let me get through mine, which is either equivalent or maybe shorter. An out-of-work engineer and his family fight to survive after a mysterious rain locks them and seemingly all of planet Earth, either in or out of whatever they happen to be in or outside of. While they slowly watch their neighbors die through the window, nature comes back big time, and the little girl won't shut up about the rain people who might be nice. The struggle is real, but did I mention our hero is an engineer? That's important because he invents chimney fishing with some ever-elaborating Rube Goldberg techniques after the family runs out of food. Unfortunately, the celebrations will have to wait because the rain people seem pretty aggressive. 5 years later, the family is thriving, having converted most of their house into a clandestine grow operation. But turns out the rain people, revealed as angry mollusks from the ocean, can open doors and just salt everything. The bad luck is compounded when the little girl tries to release a legally caught weasel and gets bitten for her trouble. Now we need antibiotics, and luckily, the house has been sinking the whole time, which makes the sewer accessible to use as a nice path to the dead neighbor Dennis' house. Don't worry about it. This mission provokes a squid attack and triggers the endgame wherein our heroes end up getting one of the squids at knife point, triggering a montage where we learn the error of our ways as violent humans and inspiring our guy to drop the knife, causing the Squid Army to shed a single tear and spare the family. I don't know who needs to hear this, but you need to care about the environment, or else hyper-intelligent sea creatures will murder everyone, and the only way to stop them is by being eco-woke.
It's funny. Yours are turning out. Your summaries are becoming more like mine, and mine are becoming more like yours.
Well, meeting in the middle.
Am I jading you a little bit? This is fun.
Well, you know, sometimes I take copious notes. On this one, I'm kind of going more off the dome. So that was my literal. I watched this 5 days ago. That was my actual recollection of the main events of the film as I remembered from, you know, that amount of time. And I can't wait to just kind of retrace some of this with you, because I think if you zero in on different snippets of this movie, you go, you know, minutes at a time where you're very invested and you're very interested in what's going on. There will be various line reads where you'll be like, what on earth? Nobody in real life talks about this.
Yeah, no one would say that.
You go through other moments where you're like, you know, how is this person still around? You know, like the jogger who we didn't mention that gets locked out. The only person really that we see get locked out. And the
next time we see her has a knife, a kitchen knife, mind you. How did she get a kitchen knife if she can't get in?
And what has she been doing with it, you know?
And how has she been I don't know.
Yeah. There's a period for about I don't know how long it is, maybe 45 minutes to an hour before you even really get into the whole there might be aliens, because at first you're thinking aliens, but before that, you know, there's nothing that's really seen. And I kind of told you this before we started recording. Some of this, in a way, reminded me of Signs. And just how they handled in the early part especially. You didn't know it was there, but there was, you know, they do the thing where it goes by the window fast. You see a shape moving. The little girl, you know, is basically like the little girl in Aliens.
Pointing out the window. I see one, and then one walks across the thing.
They mostly come at night. Mostly. She was doing that kind of stuff. And, like, they're here. Like, she was basically being the little girl that knew a little bit more than everyone else for some reason. Also turns out there's this narration that happens at the beginning and the end, and it turns out that's the little girl what's narrating. We'll talk more about these specifics maybe as we go through, but let's actually get to our Nothing But the Best. And I think
it's
a lot
perfect
of points
transition,
about the film
Jackie.
just kind of happen.
Number 5, mine. It's perfect. I love the trope of the person you'd expect to have the least knowledge to actually know the most about. It's a literary trope, folks. Look at I can't think of specific books, but books where there are like somebody who's either like they're depicted as like mentally unstable.
Wise words from the mouths of babes. I mean, look at Dune.
Right,
You got the little infant. Have you seen the 80s Dune with our guy, Kyle MacLachlan?
No, I haven't.
In the Paul Atreides spot. You got to watch that. It's got an insane, not only a sting in it and has a knife fight in metal underwear, but also there is a Toto score. Toto does the score.
I love
when they're
Toto.
riding the worms, you just get power chords. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Saw it in theaters in the lead up to watching the new Dunes. So yeah, everybody go and see the David Lynch Dune. Wild stuff. But anyway, the reason I mention that is because there's a little infant in it that, you know, is very smart.
Yeah, and it's the girl's smart, but it takes different forms. It's like Streets of New York, the homeless man screaming on the box saying the world is ending the day the world's going to end. That kind of thing. It follows the same line as that trope. I like it. It works. The little girl isn't trustworthy. The parents don't give her the time of day, and yet she seems to know about these Krakens before anybody has any inkling that there's something going on. It's a good device. and it was used appropriately in the film. Nothing but the best, number 5.
So, little girl in the 5 spot, little girl who knew too much. She, colors different pictures. They did that thing, though, where obviously she's correct and she's right about this, and everybody is just ignoring her to the degree where it's like, come on, don't you see that you are falling into this trope, family?
Right. It's like, come on, guys.
It's like she draws one of those pictures and the dad just crumples it up, throws it. Get out of here with that. Stop drawing so much. I forget the scene in particular, but she literally is right. They're like, oh, you were so right about something. And then she says something else and they're like, nah. Immediately, afterward. Get out of here.
She's like, yeah, but it is when they're saying, but one of them's nice or something. And then that's what it is. It's like she's showing all the pictures after they see it for the first time. And they're like, oh, you were right this whole time about the... And she's like, yeah, but the one I saw was nice. And they're like... And the dad's like, no.
How could you possibly know that?
How could you possibly know that? And it's like, wait. She has an entire diary of all this. And you're like, you're right about everything.
Yeah. Turns out not only is one of them nice, but has command, outranks the other squids, which came in handy.
It's kind of nice.
My number 5 is pretty general. I have a very general number 5, wherein I say the first 2/3 of the movie is pretty compelling. I think that there is a theater releasable movie in the first 2/3, and I think we can talk about maybe what could have happened to make the last third better, if not just literally, cut out that last third. But despite them not really understanding how the conclusion would be, I think you get in a room and it's like, what if there was a weird rain that made everybody locked in their houses because remember COVID? Yeah, we were all feeling, that feeling.
Locked in.
And how can we just make that, a little bit more science fiction and add a nice pro-Earth message of we got to stop all these oil spills and and when you don't have that stuff that they kind of cushioned at the end of it to try to give it a message and make it work. I just have to say in these science fiction movies, we don't always need a message. The Happening is what always comes to mind for me about why do we need... And it's funny, I keep going to these Shyamalan films as I'm kind of comparing this, because there was a light mystery, but there wasn't like a big twist in this one.
Yeah.
But I bring up The Happening
was a
because
reveal.
In that one, let me just say, spoiler alert for The Happening, the trees kill people because they're being rude to the environment. Okay, so that's kind of the crossover of what I see here. And I just don't think that this concept has ever been done well. I think The Happening is a better film, but I think it is still one of Shyamalan, who has a very flawed filmography. I think it's definitely in the bottom tier of Shyamalan films. So just that messaging... I keep talking negative about stuff. I know this is the positive part, but all that to say, that was at the end, the first 2/3, we were just kind of with the family. There was a simple, oh no, we're locked in. What do? We have the day counter, day 1, day 5. We get to year 5, so all along that journey, I'm kind of there. I'm wondering where this is going to go. And it's one of those things where I think just not knowing some of the critical things that you're going to learn in the back half is better. It's better when you don't know, and I wish I could go back to a time where I didn't know that stuff so I could watch the first 2/3 again, because I had a good time to a point.
It's funny that that's your number 5, because my number 4 I just have labeled before the reveal, and it's it's because we don't need to talk about it much more. You nailed it on the head. I think ultimately the film works in the form that it's in until we reveal the problem, the ultimate problem. And then I think it sort of loses its way. I can talk more about... I have more things later in the negatives that sort of explain what I'm thinking about that. But we could talk more about it later. I totally agree with you. That was my number 4. Before the reveal, the film is functional. It really does do what it's supposed to do, but then loses its way.
Yeah. Number 4 for me is... There's some very cool, just like filmmaking here, and cool images and moments where, it's just when I think of this film, I think the number one thing I'm going to think of is when it goes 5 years later, and then we're in the house. It's all overgrown. They've got the farm growing out of the kitchen floor. They do a cool transition. I think the piano thing was kind of dumb, but I do like the fact that, the piano transition I thought was well accomplished. It's like some of these sequences from a filmmaking and cinematography perspective were very well laid out. Even though it got a little bit ridiculous at the end when we're trying to get the antibiotics, I did like when they were in the neighbor's house. I mean, of course, the double skeleton find where we find both of the neighbor's corpses was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But then you had the scuttling crabs, which I liked. Just they really set a mood in some of these sequences, and some of the sets looked very cool. So from that standpoint and from a production design, and I think if you go in, there's a lot of little details. I don't know if I'll ever watch this a second time, but if I do, I bet you if you went back and watched that you could pick out some fun little details like in the kids' room and on the wall and things like that. So good moments,
I'm not gonna
especially the overgrown house. I do kind of wish that they had gotten into the invisible bubble house, which they kind of referenced as a possibility.
Yeah, right.
Where it's like if all the walls fall down, we might just be in like this bubble. I think that they should have gone there.
Been cool.
Maybe.
It's funny, Jackie. We're so lined up right now.
Yeah.
One house setting is my next thing. I like single I guess technically he was at, we leave the house or outside of the house twice. At the very beginning when he's fishing, driving home, and then at the end when we're out figuring out what the world is afterward. Anyway, but other than that, we're in this house the whole time. I love stuff like that. There's a lot of films, but my favorite single setting, I think, is 12 Angry Men. Incredible example of what you can accomplish in one room, let alone a single set. But the house, as Jackie was mentioning, great, goes through transitions. It grows just like the characters do. We see it it not only, breaks before it gets better. At the 5-year thing, you see it at its height of growth in this new world, and then it's torn down again in the same way our characters have that arc of they have a chance to survive. We have our first interaction with the Kraken. They lose all of their stuff, and the house deteriorates too. So we have that sort of, I like how the setting travels with us on the journey, even though it's one place. It's cool. It also, just to mention one more show that it reminds me of. It reminds me a lot of this one-act show. It's a theatrical show called what is it? The Dining Room, where it's just this one dining room and several different small scenes, but it's the same dining room with different families in it over the course of time. So you see, and it's just interesting. You see how the room changes, how different people interact in them. And it's that room is just as much a character, just like how the house is just as much a character in this movie as any of the people. I think it's interesting. I like the way they do it. And just parroting everything you said as well, Jackie. The house setting, very well done. I like the Jumanji flood at the end, too, despite me thinking that it's sort of silly. It was a good effect. Filling up a house with water looks cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with the neighbor house as well. It had that 5 minutes of Goonies energy.
Yeah, the Goonies, and it's so funny that you mentioned the little girl being they're here, because the skeleton scare in the water when she's in that house is the same, it's a parallel to when you're in the pool in the backyard of The Exorcist, and one of the skeletons pops up, and they're is that alive?
You mean Poltergeist.
Poltergeist, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did I say The Exorcist?
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah, but I know
Poltergeist.
what you meant.
Yeah, you know what I meant. Yeah. Thank you for catching me, because the internet would have... Get at me in the comments. Anyway.
But that's that's a good one. I know I referenced that line earlier, but I wasn't even... For some reason, I was conflating Aliens and Poltergeist in my head. But another another example of a young girl, that knows more than everybody else, so can see
more than everyone
something
else
that other people can't see.
Well, she's clairvoyant, so that's not even fair.
Sure. My number 3, and I think this could easily be in your demerits, and it very well might be, but that they really, I can't remember. Is it just a throwaway line, or did they mention it multiple times? But at the beginning, that he's an out-of-work engineer, and so I know that we don't need to add anything to this movie or add time or anything, but I wonder if it's one of those things where he was like an engineer in Brazil, just just like the doctors that come from, they could have added a thing there. I also thought it was weird, and I actually Googled to see what was the wife's occupation, and they didn't mention if she has one. They didn't mention it, so you have to assume she's just a homemaker. So I just am thinking in the year 2026. I mean. This is
who's surviving on that income?
Seattle suburbs as well. Probably one of the more expensive areas to live in. How are they getting by? When was his last engineering job? But in any case, my number 3 is when there are moments where he uses his engineering skills to create things, to aid in their survival, which me, as a viewer of the program Alone, which I think I've talked to you about Alone before, but if you don't know the concept, they basically send people out into the wilderness, usually Alaska, but they've done it in Africa and Canada mostly. And you go out, you get 10 kind of wild-caught items that you can bring, and then some basics as well. But you basically are out there, and you just have to survive with everything that you have. So in Alone, a lot of times, because they only get 10 items, they'll have to decide, well, can I make my own gill net to go fishing, or should I bring that as one of my items? Can I make this, or should I bring this? Can I make fire, or do I bring a ferro rod to, make fire quicker? And so in this film, even though I think your mileage may vary, on the chimney fishing, and we'll talk about some specifics of maybe the logistics around the chimney fishing, but I was like, they didn't have any ideas on how to get anything. They were really out. They had scoured their cabinets. Did they eat the dog for sure? They probably did, but they didn't really go into the eating of the dog.
They didn't get into that. Yeah,
this is but you can assume that they ate the dog,
Well, so there's 2 ways that I thought about it. I think that they were using the dog meat as bait for all the other animals and then cooking the other animals so as not to eat the dog. That being said, it's why wouldn't you just eat the dog? But whatever.
Yeah, and they had those cans where they're we'll eat this last. Do you think they ate that first or the dog?
That's what I don't understand. Wouldn't you eat the cans? That was one of the lines where I was like, what are you talking about? Wouldn't you eat the cans
that you don't like,
the stuff that's bad first? Because then the other stuff will last.
In any case,
right?
My number 3 is all about the little engineering things, the stupid device that they
I like
capture
the Rube Goldberg
the squid
stuff.
in. Yeah.
I wish they I wish there were more sequences of the Rube Goldberg things.
Yeah, I know. I really could have used a good 15 minutes on him improving his chimney fishing design, because at some point it's automated and we kind of skip a few steps on exactly what's happening there. But
maybe a more flubberized, Robin Williams, wily inventor sort of vibe. I don't know.
And maybe just more little inventions throughout, really go the full Tommy Pickles' dad.
Yeah,
Stu.
and
Stu
Mom's
Pickles.
tired of him making his silly. Hey, look, I only brought a fish home, one small fish home from fishing, but look, while I was fishing, I made this doodad that whisks up you, and then she's like, "Stop! What do you do?"
See, if this was made in the 90s, he wouldn't have been a former engineer. He would have just been an inventor, and. How does he make his money? We wouldn't have known or cared.
Don't know.
This wasn't something we cared about in the 90s. You just had inventors. My dad's an inventor.
Oh, yeah, of course. Just the inventor dad.
He's got patents, okay? That's the subtext. He's living off of his patent.
Don't have to worry about it. He made a patent once, and then he's fine for life.
Now he just invents stuff, you know? That's number 3.
I think my number 2, because my number 2 is Mom and Dad. Wagner, Moura, and Greta Lee. I think their scenes together, despite like some of the writing, which I think is sort of lackluster, I think both of these actors do a very good job for themselves in what they are given to do, and especially when they are alone together. We talk about this a lot when there are child actors involved. It's hard not to look at a child actor with 2 adult actors and be like, these adults are completely blowing these kids out of the water. And it's true. They are the whole time. And it's, but when
it could have been worse. I think it is always on a sliding scale with the kids.
Right.
The kids are fine, but we'll talk,
I'm not
I think,
trying
more
to
in the next
disparage
section about why that might be. And
I'm just saying specifically, this is positive side. I got to keep it
positive.
The adults in the room, they're doing a very good job, even with some of these lines that I think I would have cut if I was on the editing floor or pre-production. You know what I mean? If they had a perfect script, I think these two, like, you know what I mean, knock it out of the park. They're knocking what they have somewhere, but they don't. The field they're on is, different. So the boundaries are confused. So they're hitting the ball. They're doing well. It's just that, might be playing different sports. I'm very confused. The point is that they are doing really good. Greta Lee, Wagner, Moura, doing a great job. I wish you had a better script to work with. I liked the heartfelt stuff that they did together. When they did the silly stuff too, like the, even though the dog was unnecessary, oops, sorry.
It's all right.
The dog stuff, unnecessary. They deliver performances about it that are very good. Like the way where they take the kids to the other room, blah blah blah. It's well done. The smoking a joint because they found it in their sex drawer, funny, works well. They play off each other. They have chemistry. Good job. But that's my number 2.
Yeah, I agree, and I have more to say about that in a second, but my number 2 is the early neighbor communication stuff, when we're seeing people, in the window of the house, everybody's communicating with the various, boards and chalkboards and signs. One of the biggest things on this is Wagner Moura's handwriting is just terrible, and I don't understand how anyone can read it at the distance that they have, and, I know that a couple of them have binoculars and whatever, but that was maybe the one question I had. But there's some nice.
And he's
moments.
writing in chalk. That's the other thing.
You also had
this whiteboard.
Yeah, you also had this under the current thing of none of these neighbors have ever talked before, and this is the first time they're communicating at all, which I thought was an interesting, comment on where we are in society these days. But just the mechanics of that early neighbor stuff, and then the dentist neighbor drops the bomb at some point. He's like, "Yeah, we don't have food. We ate it all the first day. We thought that everything was going to be fine. Turns out it sucks." So
it sucks. We didn't have any food. Yeah.
So I think there's a reason why that was one of the things. There's a couple things that are in the trailer that are probably some of the best parts of the movie, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
They had a couple of strong ideas. That was one of them. You also had the hookup house there, where you had the one-night stand.
Yeah, the one-night stand.
It did make me think, though, would this have been a better film if you took this all in from one of the other house's perspectives? What if we were in the hookup house? I think that's a better film.
Yeah, Yeah. I think so. Well, I think it gives you more opportunity for what they were trying to do. I don't know.
They're trying to do this whole family thing, and I understand that. But
well, I guess. I think they're trying to do any living together. It could have been any living together situation, conflict, being stuck because that's what the boy didn't have any. It wasn't like a problem with his father's authority. The daughter didn't have a problem with the father's authority. It was that they couldn't get out, and that could be like any relationship. It's like it could have been the couple, the one night stand. It could have been the married couple who's the gentleman's wife, the older couple whose wife dies first. But I don't know.
Yeah, I
Jackie,
just think Hookup House, I think, would have been a lot of fun.
Would be a funny movie.
You know, they
could have called it Hookup House.
They say, you take the upper floor, I'll take the lower floor. At some point, somebody realizes that all the food is on one of the floors. They have a falling out. Half. They get back together.
Half down the middle instead of like top and bottom.
They're in with it again. All of a sudden, there's a squid person here. Oh no! What are we gonna do now?
He wants to get involved in our relationship.
And then the guy comes in, and the squid is like in the bed smoking a cigarette, and it's like, wait a minute,
hold on.
All right, let's go to your number one.
My number one, Jackie, is the grounded scenes. I mentioned the father and mother before, but I want to give. I said I wasn't going to disparage the children, so I'm not going to. I'm going to give some flowers to every scene that we have that is grounded. I think those are the scenes that work best in this movie, the ones that aren't like too preoccupied with the sci-fi of it all. They're concentrating on the character work. It's like the school site, or like telling them to go to school and then like having them do their schoolwork, them doing the sit-ups with their mom, doing the high fives, the montage stuff, the fish gutting session where they're using the stuffies instead of actual
Annie
fish.
And then Air Force One.
Watching Annie, Air Force One in the car. All of these things that bring us in as a family and watch this unit grow and sort of see. I think that should have been more of the focus of the film. I think you would have gotten more out of it if you, again, I said before the reveal if you threw out the reveal and ultimately just had it sort of a character discussion on how this family either lives or dies in this house. Maybe we never find out. Maybe they never leave. Maybe you're left on, here they've set themselves up, but they are stuck forever.
Yeah.
Here,
I legitimately think it's a better film if it's just we don't know why it happened, but one day we were able to leave.
And ultimately every one of those grounded scenes is better than the science fiction scene. And if we had more of them and didn't concentrate on any of the other sci-fi horror stuff, you just have... It would still sort of be scary and suspenseful and a thriller, but ultimately you just have more of like a character piece and less of a monster movie, which is fine, but I think you accomplish more that way. And your message doesn't get muddied by weird cryptid animals. You could still have keep your family close, treat the world good. And you have all that and just still have it be between family and never have some weird creature come along. But I'm not demeriting. We're saying the grounded scenes are good. That's it.
Yeah. I think that, again, there's a kernel of a good film in here that's maybe half or 2/3 of it. And I just question, I think, maybe why we got to the final edit. Maybe we felt like we spent so much on CGI that we had to include as much of that in the film as possible. But I think literally some of that is the worst stuff. Number one for me, though, and this kind of goes with, I believe, what was your number two. Wagner Moura makes this movie about 50 times more watchable than if it was just like some guy. Yeah. I think that if you left this movie to just randos that we don't know or third tier type stars, this is a real slog and you do not finish the film. And him, and then I will give Greta Lee a little bit, although I do feel like she is maybe the most disserviced by the writing, which is unfortunate. Sure. But yes, I think that you have two capable people, and when we focus on them and their characters and, the people of it, I agree, that is the good stuff in this film. And having a couple of the right people in this keeps it from being an unmitigated disaster, because this is easily like a direct to VHS if you've got different actors in this thing.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get to the demerits, and before we go there, I will reveal the Rotten Tomatoes. And have you looked this up before I ask you? Okay, so
I never check out.
What do you think the Rotten Tomatoes is on this movie, The Last House?
Critic score, I would say, is probably like, I'm going to guess like 53%, and I'm going to say audience is like 60.
You'll be absolutely amazed at how low it is. This film is a 22% critic score, 49% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Hey, wow. That's crazy. I get it, but like...
You can't tell me that this movie is only 5% better than... I can't even remember the Kevin Hart movie, the name of it. I've already
72
forgotten.
hours.
72 hours.
It's
That's
like
right. You can't tell me that it's only a little bit better. It's more of an actual film that has, even though the writing is bad, there's writing, which helps, not to go back and hit 72 hours, 72 hours looking around like, oh, catching strays here.
It's like, I didn't even mean to do this.
But yeah, it's very low. I think that the testing probably pointed to the fact that this thing we should just release on Netflix, and it was very popular for like a week. I think people were talking. It had like enough marketing behind it where they did the billboard thing, but very interesting. I think the audience score probably has it about right. I think 50% is valid. And I'm a little bit surprised that it didn't at least get to the high 30s, if not low 40s on critics. But also you have to understand that when you do not release something theatrically, the volume of reviews is significantly lower. So take that into account as well. Of the top critics, you probably only got like between 25 and 50 instead of hundreds. So it is what it is, but that is quite low. And so let's get into our demerits. But before that, I think overall, we both felt like this was just too long. That's something we've said already.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's one of your points.
No.
Okay. But yeah, that's just like an overall
I mentioned that you could cut time. I have a way to cut the time.
Yeah. And we kind of already talked about one of the ways that you could do that is just kind of really not doing the reveal and just cutting the last like 30, 25 minutes.
I've got more suggestions.
All right. Let's get to our demerits, starting with number 5. Go ahead.
Number 5, you said it just a second ago. Well, about a minute ago. The water CGI is bad. I think we should stop trying to do CGI water forever. After coming off of the Netflix live-action Avatar and this...
Oh.
Netflix...
This is better than the water bending.
I know, but put it in the workshop for another, like... The only acceptable water CGI that I think worked was the stuff that was on the window. Every other time when it's, like, floating around or doing some weird picking up a lady thing, it's
that was tough. Yeah,
that's tough to watch. And they did themselves every favor they could have. They had her in the dark, a single light source... Everything you can do for CGI to like make it pop or work better, and it doesn't. So, yeah, to make a movie completely surrounding water creatures or whatever, and having them have hydrokinesis, bending water or what.
Can I just say?
Fine, just don't.
Look, we
CGI
live in a very, this was maybe a delayed COVID age script or something. The thing now that we're past the pandemic, is AI. AI is the hot button thing. Nobody likes AI, especially in Hollywood. But listen, if the humans can't make water better, the AI is going to come and take those water jobs, okay? AI is going to start taking all the water jobs unless you can get it together. people.
It's already taken all the water, and now it's going to take the water jobs.
It's going to take all the real water in order to make, the CGI water look better. And we're going to wonder what happened, but at least we can look at water that looks like water when our AI overlords are ruling the film industry.
It's a bit of a circular problem, but, it's...
You can't have it both ways. You either can have real water or you can
drink it,
not real water that looks really good on film.
And you have to pick one.
If they can make water bending work, I might change my AI stance. I don't know. But
oh my gosh, don't say that. Get at us in the comments.
Start a water bending company. It's like if you need water bending for a film, hold on, let me go prompt Claude really quick.
I'm using Gemini.
All right, my number 5.
True. I'm using Grok.
Do you have anything else to say about the CGI?
No, it's just bad.
Yeah.
It's just bad.
It was bad, and I wonder if this film would have been better. Like, part of me wishes that some of these films that are decent concepts, what if they made this film in the 1980s and they had to use practical effects? I think about that
Jackie, I've been watching the 80s body horror movies for the last 6 months. I've been obsessed, and it's like, I don't care how campy they are.
They could have used that.
It's like, look me in the eye and tell me The Thing doesn't hold up, because it absolutely does, and it's disgusting. And it's like, you can tell the keen observer knows that it's fake, but I don't care how campy it looks. It is off-putting to watch that movie. And I don't know, you're trying to make mythical crazy stuff, and make it off-putting. I don't care if it's campy, it makes me feel uneasy, and I thought that's what we were going for. So, lean in.
All right, my number 5, I'm going to go with the narration. They have a narration at the beginning and at the end. The first thing that I hate about this is it kind of removes the tension, assuming that the narrator is not a dead person, which has been used in some films like The Lovely Bones, spoiler, and whatever. But immediately when someone's talking, and let me just read you some choice lines from here. Everyone remembers where they were the day the rain came. It was a Sunday, not quite winter. The forecast had called for sun. People went about their mornings as usual. We lived close to each other then. And it's like, okay, cool. We're talking from the future. We know that there's a big change that's going to come, an earth-shattering change that's going to come. But it also means that the person talking is still around. So we know that this movie's called The Last House. We can maybe anticipate that the people we're following are in the last house. This is one of the people, blah, blah, blah. So that part of it, and then they decided to bookend this thing with the same concept, and I believe there's some narration possibly in the middle as well. That's just kind of over-explaining, and I feel like this is the real Netflix exec saying, look, nobody's going to be watching the screen. You got to over-explain this thing so that people that are on their phones and haven't been paying attention for 45 minutes can find an on-ramp. And it reminds me of that thing that Matt Damon was saying in that interview about The Rip, another Netflix movie, where they basically said as much, that Netflix wants you to kind of explain the plot of the movie 3 times throughout so that people will always be able to know exactly what's going on. And you could kind of feel that, and I feel like the narration was a piece of that. And it was just awkward, and film is a visual medium. And I'm a big believer in show, don't tell, and I think that a lot of narration is not always the best choice. The one thing that they didn't do is, the classic, yeah, that's me. I bet you're wondering how I got in this squid person situation.
Record scratch. Freeze frame.
Wait, I might be back on the narration. This actually says...
We're coming back. I'm bringing him back, folks. He's back on board.
I got an idea for a new film. It's about a bunch of octopus men. All right. Let's go
Playing basketball against the Harlem Globetrotters.
Oh, now I'm all the way back in.
We're back. You're probably wondering how I got here. And he's like dunking a ball. With a squid arm trying to block.
Everyone remembers where they were the day the Harlem Globetrotters came.
The rules didn't say anything about Krakens playing basketball.
How are we going to play with 8 balls?
There's nothing in the rules that says a Kraken can't play basketball. It's just Air Bud, but with Krakens. Okay.
Air Kraken.
I gotta stop. Air Kraken. Okay, we're back. I'm gonna say my next demerit, my 4. It actually does pretty well with your last one, because narration's mentioned in mine.
Yeah.
The flow of the film is bad. You have a montage, narration, and like the time card thing where you're saying like 1 day, 1 week. So you have 3 devices that sort of move time and tell the story, and you're using all 3 of them in the same film. It's sort of like pick one. Like you could keep the narration. Because there are examples of movies, not only that have good narration, but like have like I just thought of this while you were talking in your last one. There's a really good thriller, basically single house film that accomplishes exactly the same goal as this one, sans the COVID allegory. It's like treat the world nice, all of this full science fiction reveal. Narrator at the beginning that's explaining stuff. Begonia. Begonia does a wonderful job of all of the things that this movie tries to do. They have a dead character doing the narration at the beginning. They have spoilers if you haven't seen Begonia. Sorry, Jesse Plemons' character dies. Also, I gotta say, if he wasn't up for an Oscar against Michael B. Jordan the same year as Sinners came out, I think Plemons would have had that thing in the bag. There's like no way.
He's going to be there a lot.
Yeah. There's no way he... Right, I'm not... I'm just saying, like, that was a stacked... The point is, Begonia could... Like, he could have won Best Actor for Begonia because of all of these things. We've got... They put the narration in there, but they didn't have, like, 10 years later. You know what I mean? They didn't have a montage or a series of things. They picked that vehicle and they used it effectively. And they have a full alien reveal at the end that shows you like, he was actually right about almost everything except for like one critical.
Yorgos Lanthimos has a thing and a style and a whimsy, and everything that he does has this like weird fantastical element to it. You know, and he loves working with Emma Stone, so I'll just watch any of those films because I like whimsy and I like Emma Stone. So, you know, sign me up for more.
It's a great combination.
Yeah.
My point is, ultimately, you're putting all these different pieces together. If you had locked into one of them, like if you lock into the narration and use it to its full effect as a device to sort of explain the film as it's going on, you use it more than just at the beginning, at the end. You use it like instead of the time cards and the montage, and you lean into the narration, you get stuff done faster. You probably can cut 40 minutes out of the movie, even with the reveal and the Krakens being a part of it, because now you don't need the time stuff that happens. You can explain it. You can say it. Again, telling, not showing. But then you could have also turned the other way and done a montage-heavy thing where we're looking at how we're planting, instead of just a singular montage, you have multiple montages throughout the film where it's like, this is how they got over the trapping problem. This is how they got over the growing problem. This is how they got over the fighting with each other problem.
And that was the interesting stuff, is the problem solving. Like, that was the stuff that I was the most interested in, is like, okay, this is a problem. How are we going to solve this? And there was some that they just kind of left on the side. We don't need to get into that, but like, get out. Yeah. They tried to address everything that they could through dialogue, because you could tell they were having these same conversations. Like, well, but where's the dog going to go to the bathroom? But what about this? What about that? Some of that they directly address, and some of it's just like, whatever.
And it's a multiple thing, because it's like, it's funny because what my demerit is ultimately, it's like you can kill two birds with one stone with any of these techniques, but at this, like, that's also the problem with the script writing. They did a lot of things where you could kill two birds with one stone. You just mentioned it, the dog having to use the bathroom. They end up tearing up the floorboards and planting, like, in the dirt anyway. It's like, why aren't you letting the dog use the restroom in the torn up floorboards and stuff? And then you can because like they talk about fertilizer later, and it's like, then you can repurpose the dog's waste as fertilizer. And then it's like, wow. So I'm just saying, like, there's like, not even from like a script and a production standpoint, there's a lot of times where you had all of the pieces already in place, and it's like you forgot that they connected, so you just kind of kept all the pieces on the table. It's like having an unfinished puzzle that's like all the sides, you got all the sides done, and then you just put all the inside pieces haphazardly that don't like really fit, and they're just piled in the middle, and you're like, yeah, I guess that's technically a puzzle. It doesn't really go together.
I think I'm actually gonna do something that I didn't write down for my number 4, but we were just talking about this, and so it makes me actually feel like it needs to be on my list. So I'm gonna who knows what'll get booted out of this list, but what I have to put at my number 4 is the dog. I have to put the dog in the demerits. Yeah. And listen, there's some of my favorite movies have a dog that dies. Well, one movie, John Wick.
I was like, Molly and Me?
No, I mean, yeah, that's another one. That,
I Am Legend.
Have to watch multiple times. Yeah, there's a lot of what you could call, good films that have a dog that dies. Everything that you were just talking about makes me realize the dog didn't need to die at all. They could have used the dog for fertilizer when they invent the whole, fishing, the chimney fishing. They could have gotten meat for the dog. He was like getting stuff left and right with that thing. You're telling me they wouldn't have had enough meat, and that they couldn't have grown rice up in the house somewhere, and it fed the dog, rice and street chicken, squirrels, etc.
All I know is that
why did who was in the room saying no, the dog has to die because you got to show how far they're gonna go. But wouldn't it have been a nice character moment if it's like, I know that we're going to starve, but I can't do it. I just simply can't do it. I think that is more interesting because, like, if that's the case, why not just have someone, like, cut off their arm and they're eating the arm? Or, like, I guess one of you kids has to go because, listen.
No. Yeah, I agree with you. And, like, if I didn't think it was supposed to be a character study on them, like, surviving the thing, I think ultimately the best movie that they could have done was actually like a sort of carbon copy of The Mist, but stuck in your house. You know what the Mist?
Yeah.
It's like, they set it up at the beginning. He has a gun. He has one gun, and it's buddy, it's like you have to, exactly. So you got to make the decision. That's why I think locking them in at the end and being like the inexplicable locked in forever, have it and being like, well, the last line of the film is, we have enough food for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it's like a frame of the gun, and it's like, well, what are they going to do about it? And then that's the end. And it's like, after we had all these moments with them, heart-wrenching. I don't know. It's just a completely different movie.
And the other note on the dog, early on, the first thing that I'm thinking when this dog is here and they get locked in and he's like pawing at the door, I'm like, oh, buddy. They have to have, like, I really hope they have just a bunch of dog food on reserve. It would have been interesting. You know what they could have done, too, with this whole thing is they could have made him like a doomsday prepper, but they didn't.
Yeah.
You know? Because those guys are, like, waiting for this opportunity. Like, so you're telling me they're the last house? There's got to be these doomsday bunker guys that are like, well, good thing I have 10 years of, ready to eat stuff down here. But the other thing is, I was wondering at some point, where is the dog going to go to the bathroom? And then at some point in the dialogue, they kind of address it. But he's like, don't worry, buddy. Just go anywhere and I'll clean it up. It's like, what? Why don't you, make a corner where you try to get the dog to go there? And again, your whole thing with the fertilizer, it just happened too early in the game. And apparently they were just dead set on this dog has to die. Maybe the dog actually was on his last legs during the production, so they had no choice. That's the only thing I can think, because the dog didn't need to die. It's such a cheap move.
Yeah. It's perfect transition, Jackie. My number three is obvious bait emotional scenes. The dog, the boy trying to get out of the house, the car scene. While I think he did it the acting's fine for the car stuff, but it's like all of these super desperate, highly emotional scenes, obviously just written in there to bait you. The dog is put in the movie to bait you. The boy being like, I have to get out, and then having the whole confrontation after the dad shuts the door. We talked about this before too, where it's like he's not even close to getting out of the door, and dad holds him back from getting out of the door after they see the first cracking in the house. And he's like, I almost got out. You're trying to bait me. What are you going to do if you get out, kid? What happens when you get outside? You immediately die. So I don't know why are you trying to get out? You don't need to get out. In fact, your brain, your now 5 years older brain should be like, hey, salvation isn't outside. Salvation is created. Ooh, musical reference.
The other thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that, with just these kind of random emotional scenes that are just kind of airlifted in, I feel like that is kind of how they played the kids in this whole thing, where all of a sudden one of the kids is unhappy that, they're eating salad or whatever and is storming out, show me what's in the fridge, show me what's in the cabinet. And then, the other time the boy is mad at the dad and it's just like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's he's the only reason you're here. And also, you've been playing piano for the last 5 years to the point of mastery. So it's like, have you really been putting in the time to make this a better situation inside? Yeah. They just have these sudden kind of emotional outbursts that I feel like are unearned. And you have also the complication of the fact that you have a dual cast of children that are the boy is a young teen or 12 or something. And then he's now 17?
17, a teenager, a full-on teenager. Whatever, where you look like you're gonna.
And then the little girl 20. Is 5, 6, and then she's 10, 12, whatever.
Yeah.
So having a consistent kind of character arc for those groups of kids, I think, is a really difficult needle to thread. And I don't think that they nailed it with the way that everything played out. So.
Yeah.
All right. That was what, your 3?
That was my 3.
Okay. My stuff is all jumbled around now, so I got to pick out my 3. Okay. I think I'm going to do, as my number 3, I'm going to do just awful writing beat. And there's a couple of lines that I've kind of picked out here, but you could really go through this thing and find a few. The one that was really atrocious to me, and again, it's they're really not doing Greta Lee any service with this material, and I'm honestly shocked that this made it into the final cut and that they didn't reconfigure this line on the set. There's one point where, I don't know, it's mid-film, and I think they're in the bedroom, and they're realizing that, this is a big problem, and that maybe it's like the radio is a cut or something. There's some new thing that happens, and Greta Lee's like, we are no longer the ones steering this ship, which just sounds like something no one would ever say. Like, it comes out of nowhere. It's not like they've been speaking in ship allegories the whole time, because most of the lines are like, stop hitting your sister. Come over here. Do this. Do that. I'm going to go here. And then all of a sudden, we are no longer the ones steering this ship. It's like all of a sudden we're like weird European philosophers or something.
So the way you're saying it now does make me also think they're trying to intentionally obfuscate what the reveal's going to be. I think they're trying to like imply some sort of alien thing, because you saying that it's like not steering the ship anymore. It's not just, we're talking about nautical stuff, so he's a fisherman, he's just steering a boat, but like steering the ship is like, maybe there's a spacecraft, they're steering do you know what I mean? It's like saying that brings up more than just, and in my mind, I feel like there was a writer that's like, keep it in there. That maybe we could confuse him into thinking there's a spaceship.
I just think, I just don't know how that made it in. I just think it's so bad, and you stick that into any context, and it just seems weird. It's like someone took over the country. We are no longer steering the ship of democracy. It's just like talking about the human race at large when you don't really know what's going on. They're trapped in a house, and they really have a very narrow perspective. So focusing on what's happening inside the house makes more sense. Like you're saying, the grounded scenes are the best ones, because why are we trying to make these overarching thoughts on the world at large? How can you even turn your mind to that when you've got to be so focused on what's going on where you're at? So that was terrible. The kids had some pretty bad ones. I don't need to go too far into that, but I think that even though the idea of the young child who knows stuff, I was just rereading some of these lines. The rain looked different today.
Oh, yeah.
She visits when it rains. And, if that's what you're doing, I don't really know how else you do that. But in abstract, just some of these things when I was reading through them were pretty funny. But, yeah, we're no longer the ones steering the ship, by far the worst. And I'm sure that other people have moments in this film where, you just openly kind of scoff or laugh at things that are being said. And the narration I already mentioned, but yeah, you could lump that in there as well for me. Let's go to, is this 2? Are we on 2?
It's number 2, yeah.
All right, go to you 2.
So kind of bouncing off what you said, it's funny how a lot of mine are just like sort of secondary. The writing has confused storytelling. Maybe it happened in editing. I'm not really sure.
Yes.
Like
this thing was edited like no one's business. You gotta believe. Because like,
there's a part where we talked about coming back up through the bathroom. Mom brings the Kraken. They stop the Kraken from getting in. Why does it take so much time for the Kraken to get to the house afterward? That's one. And then the second part is, how do they know that the house is going to flood? Because they seal the garage door so that there's no water that can get in. They have no, information other than the fact that the mom in the other house says, oh, this place looks like it's been underwater. But there's no way to know why that is. You can infer it, sure, but the idea that they know that the house is going to flood at the end of the movie in the penultimate scene, it doesn't make any sense, but their trap relies on the fact that they know that it's going to flood. That part of it sort of lost on me. Maybe they had a conversation that got cut. But again, it's not just that. It's like we talked about this the other day. The whole house is sealed in, but somehow when the chimney's flue breaks, that is open. How is the entire house sealed shut with a water shell, essentially, that can be flexed and
apparently in the squid economy,
anywhere.
You can only do the magic rain like one time to create the coat, and then they either ran out of that resource or there's some reason why they can't do it again.
But if the explanation is that the door broke off and the chimney broke, it's like, but you tried to break a window.
Yeah.
So if that shell was over the top, over the flue already.
Plus, you see it moving around, filling in gaps.
Yeah, wouldn't it be like the liquid glass thing or liquid water glass thing that it's doing anyway? Wouldn't you still? So they shouldn't be able to get out. The way that they wrote it, it's like that. The only conceivable way that they could have made it out was the sewer thing, and I'm glad they brought it in. But it's like all of the rules they set up.
Yeah.
Sometimes they break them, but it's just very interesting. And then I think they didn't, to have the end result be let's be friends with the squids essentially, or let them go free. There's no I don't think that there is a through line to that to get us to let them go and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Treat the world fine. Because it's
violence
we have it
is
in
not the
conversations.
answer. It's
right,
not
but it's
something that really was thematically... They tried to jam it in there, but
it's
just
not relevant throughout the entire
across.
film until maybe the last 20 minutes. And then you're like, oh, I guess they were predatoring the whole time. I guess they were holding weapons every time they interacted.
They were killing animals, but guess why they were doing it? Because they were locked in their house by the squids.
Yeah. And it's in every interaction with the squids, everybody, the jogger had a knife. Oh, that's why it attacked the jogger. And it's but what are we doing? It's you could have just had them be we hate all humans and kill them. It's
what if they just locked everybody in their houses so that they could come up and introduce themselves and say, hey, hello, we've noticed that you've had a few oil spills. Could you maybe stop doing that? And we would be happy to be, friendly mollusk neighbors to you.
If you don't mind signing this clipboard, just put your name, your email address, and your credit card information.
Now, I noticed that you ordered the calamari when you went out to dinner. Now, is that a usual thing for you, or is it just a one time?
Once in a while sort of special occasion kind of thing. But yeah, it's confusing storytelling. There's a lot of things that happen either without explanation, or it's either how did the characters know, or you're I guess they could have known, but it's sort of lost on how they came to the decision to do the thing that they did without either something was cut. Something's lost in the sauce, and I don't know what it is.
I think that a lot of decisions are made literally just to make things happen that need to happen based on arbitrary reasons in the way that the story is structured. And that's the worst stuff is just the pieces that need to fall into place. We see it early on with Chekhov's cracked chimney and that the house is sinking. And it's immediately that's going to pop up, but you don't know how. And when you figure out why that's happening, it's what? That doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't even make sense.
Because, number one, okay. Should
the
I go to my
would have been
number
open
two?
Regardless. Yeah, you could just go to your
Let
number
me
two.
go to mine because you kind of hit on my last 2 points anyway in what you were saying, but I will approach them kind of separately here. My number two is going to be confounding Science Corner. And just the so many questions that we have about how this friggin' rain works. The rain the rain comes, everybody's locked in the house. Like you said, at a later point in the film, the little girl, is it when they send the little girl up there? No, they send her after. How does the chimney crack? Oh, it's because the little girl is on the ribbon thing. And then her weight, even though she's like probably 50, 60 pounds, is enough to fully crack this thing, and then the top of it kind of like wiggles off. Why wasn't it sealed on because of the rain film? And then why does it not get sealed up by future rain? Was it just the first rain that caused the locking mechanism? Then, how does the rain, which if you've ever used an umbrella, it kind of goes like over the top and then to the sides. How does the rain get all the way up underneath the floor to where they couldn't have like drilled straight down through the center immediately? And then why apparently does the sinking house just allow more space underneath for the sewer? So it's like they only get that one coating, and then the coating is just set in stone, more or less. And then they just, as the house sinks, it's creating this vacuum underneath, apparently, where now they can use the sewer. But the film didn't go into the pipes. It went around all the pipes, and the electricity was still good as well until basically the power stations went down. And so just the more layers of this that you peel back, the more it's like, I get how explaining this in the film would have just taken more and more time. But number one, give Greta Lee's character a job and make her a scientist so that at least we have one person that is trying to explain this or hypothesize, instead of just kind of, oh, it works this way, kind of, but when we need to go to the neighbor's house, it works in this other way, and that's why we need the crack, and the house sinks. Perfect. Good job, team. Great writing. So there's that, and then if I just may add a couple of other points here. The video walkie-talkies that they had, how are those powered, and how are those working 5 years later?
I think they're baby monitors.
They did not look like baby monitors that I've seen. There was something weird about them.
I thought that's what my first thought was too. I'm like, I've never seen anything like this, and at most, what this family would have is a baby monitor because the girl's still young enough to where they might have not thrown it away.
I get that, but they needed to use the baby monitors previously, and they needed to talk about the batteries in their rationing more, because when those popped up, I was like, what?
Yeah, how are they doing that?
Like, they lost power 5 years ago. What is going on right now? And 5 years is a long time. I mean, how long would it take for those batteries just to expire and not work anymore? And like,
they
a
built
lot of
a
their
solar
storage
panel.
has probably been converted. Well, that would have been interesting if they had solar, if they would just
solar panel with
green
rechargeable
junkies.
Batteries.
They should have just made them hippies and really, brought the eco thing to the next level.
They should have had one house of hippies and one house of like far right conspiracy theorist, like doomsday preppers.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And it's like, who makes it out? Well,
it should have been almost like a competition, Yeah. Who's going to be the last house? which socio-political, sphere is going to make it to the end?
That's a real movie. I can't wait to get them to fight about
politics.
And
then the last thing, and there's so many science things we could talk about, but the other thing is, like, at one point they look outside and it's like, there's grizzly bears, nature is healing, we were the problem kind of stuff. And it's like, wait a minute. How are the squids so discriminatory as to only affect, apparently, and drown, apparently, the humans? Why did the squids apparently not know that they were there for 5 years? Or was it just the nice one that was keeping them alive? And why weren't the other neighbors nice? I mean, now we're just really retreading the old territory about that whole situation.
And it's like, am I to assume that every single human being that these Kraken came across brandished a weapon at them or
A knife
like
to the
were
eye.
aggressive. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
you're telling me not a single person cowered and like defecated themselves and like did like the roll up like you would for a bear where you like you telling me nobody did that and these things were like, oh my gosh, this pitiful thing, we're gonna leave this guy
And
alone.
we're kind of getting to my number one, so I'm just going to go into that, and then you can give yours. But
yeah, of course.
My number one is the conclusion, and especially the knife montage, where he's got the knife to the squid's eye. He's got him right where he wants him, and then all of a sudden we have to do this montage of all of the times that he has brandished weapons, hurt animals, done this and that throughout that was like threatening or whatever. It just did not get there. It just did not get there for me. Number one, why does the family need to survive? I don't think they needed to survive.
Yeah.
But if they're going to survive, there had to be a better idea that we could come up with than we show mercy to the squid, so the squid is going to show mercy to us. They didn't show mercy to literally anybody else.
Yeah. And there is a point where one of them says, "Why do we need to eat meat anymore?" Like a whole like vegan
one of the kids is
thing.
going to go vegan. We're in a survival situation. That made me so mad.
I was like, "Are you stupid?" I didn't want to.
Pulling it back to the show Alone, there are people that have gone on to Alone and have tried to do it vegan, and let me tell you, they never remotely get close to winning, because if you're in an actual survival situation, you cannot pick and choose that, where your calories are coming from. So unless they're growing enough beans to completely provide all of their like complex proteins, but even then, like unless you have a meat allergy, because also while you're growing this stuff, you get a Lone Star tick, and now you start, throwing up every time you eat red meat. Unless that's the case, you got to eat what you get. And these kids should have had the memory of when they were basically starving. And I just don't know anybody who went through like, World War II that is going to say, oh no, I'd just rather not eat, this food that is readily available. People who have known starvation do not think like that. So this is a very, again, woke kind of late stage weird thing that they kind of injected to this movie.
And I don't want to get into the whole like vegan thing, but it's like it's just totally unrealistic to have because wasn't it the daughter that says it? Because it's the daughter that's like, why?
And that has a story reason, because she's the one that has the good relationship with the squid from outside the window.
Right, so, but she's also the character that stress eats and freaked out when they were starving. So correct. I'm like, this is one of those things where it's like, your crops or whatever in your house are thriving, but you think that, first of all, that's going to last forever. Second of all, if you were really, really intelligent, when they started catching birds, what they should have done is, like, they should have kept the birds alive and then taken their feces, because birds eat seeds, and then you would then cultivate the seeds for, because this is, I don't know if people, like, if you have a bunch of crows, if you have a murder of crows and they're going around eating a bunch of seeds, Jackie, you remember college, we had that big murder of crows that lived right next to my apartment, like junior and senior year. And do you know how many flowers were planted just by like, and flowers and different kinds of things that got planted all around campus because this giant murder of crows came and was just eating all of these local flowers and then pooping everywhere all over campus. And it would just, that's like double thing. But
also, what about, listen, we're in the Seattle suburbs. You got to have some neighbors that have their own chickens, because like that's a hip thing to do.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you have chickens wandering around. You catch the chickens, don't kill them, bring them in, make eggs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many other things that they could have gone into. And again, that stuff was the most interesting stuff to me, was just like the pure survival of it. But man, the wrap up was tough, and that's my number one. Is just the knife montage was really bad. So
this is a perfect, again, Jackie, we're like getting in sync. My ultimate number one is a decision I made in my head at the very end of the film, which is this was definitely two movies put together.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't know what happened, but I think they had a script for like a locked-in movie, and then they had a script for like a monster movie. And they were like, wouldn't it be something if the monsters was a locked-in thing? And they put them together because the horror scenes and like the slice of life family building scenes seem like two completely different films. The grounded scenes seem like somebody took the time, really understood the material and the point they were trying to get across.
Yeah.
And then there's this monster part of it that has a separate idea that I think on its own would have achieved it fine. You have a bunch of Krakens that swing in, flood the entire world. There's one family left, and they're terrorizing them. And this family has to figure, cool. But it's like, I would rather have them out and about being hunted, a Most Dangerous Game style. Like, they're surviving alone out in the wilderness, not necessarily locked in. I want the monsters chasing them constantly. I need them to be able to move. I need them to be able to, like, do something to get out of the problem. And ultimately, they can't, or, things get in their way. Them being stuck and there being a monster is like, I can't have it. It's like being locked in a house and having superpowered, like, water monsters outside. They just why not just flood every house, kill everything forever, and not ever have to worry about looking for them? It's like, you if they could run, then they could look for them. They're locked away, so the monsters could just kill them without even knowing that they're in the house, because they see a structure and they're like, that's a human structure, we flood.
Yeah.
There's no reason for them not to, but then you wouldn't have them surviving. So it's like you couldn't have them locked in and the monster at the same time. So we sort of obfuscate why all of this is happening, and we have one full movie that, instead of two, maybe 1 hour movie sort of short films, now we have two, or like one long 2 hour sort of misguided film that doesn't really definitively point to anything, but you can definitely sit through and watch it, which is, I guess, what the default is for production companies now. Rather than having two works that are shorter and sort of like a little taste, but well thought out, I would rather opt for something that's 2 hours long, and I guess I can throw more production at it. I don't know. I don't know what the thinking is behind it.
I don't know. I feel like people really want shorter films overall. So it is weird when you have like a non-franchise movie that goes this long. One interesting thing, though, you said it feels like multiple films. I think usually when something feels like that, you assume that there are going to be like 4 different writers, and you see that sometimes where there's an original script and multiple people take a pass at it, they all get a writing credit. This only has a single writer, and it's Matthew Robinson, who I kind of offhand remarked must be Tim Robinson's brother or something. But let me just read you some of his past works. So his first thing, he kind of broke out with The Invention of Lying. So his script was called something else, but his first big script became The Invention of Lying, a Ricky Gervais film, and he actually was made co-director with Ricky Gervais for that movie in 2009. And then fast forward, most recently, 10 years after that, and he hasn't been super prolific. He did a monster truck movie with Nickelodeon in 2016. 2019, he was the writer for Dora and the Lost City of Gold, Dora the Explorer film.
Oof.
And then more recently, he's kind of doing these weird sci-fi things. One that I've heard of, haven't seen, but was better reviewed is Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die. So that was his, and then The Last House, his most recent one. But yeah, an interesting.
I saw Love and
wrinkle.
Monsters, which is another
Did
one
you?
that he did in 2020, and it was fine. But this is another one where I thought to myself, it's like,
yeah,
it's honestly very similar to what happens in this, except instead of, it's so funny. This is the effective version of what it's like. He's out and about, and there are monsters.
Yeah.
And it's like he has to, but I don't know.
I just wonder what the
Locking them
original
in doesn't
script was
help.
like, and how much the shooting script paralleled what was written down in the original script.
Yeah,
Maybe
I
the
don't
original
know.
script is a lot better. That happens. I mean, sometimes there's a movie where it's like a really hot script, and then all of a sudden it gets to the film and they just can't convey what's on the page. And this could be the case, or it could be that, the script had all these flaws in it as well. But I think that'll do it for the demerits. Let's get finally to our chairman of the board. Who do you think won this film?
Jackie, I want to say Dad. I do.
The daddy. Whose
But,
character
Daddy-
name was... Graham was the little boy. The dad was Jason.
Jason. Sure. That makes sense.
It's before he puts on
I was gonna say-
the hockey mask.
Yeah. Jason. Before the mask. I would have said that, and I would have said Greta, but the answer is actually Cass the dog.
Cassidy the dog.
Cassidy the dog.
Which I believe was like a Butch Cassidy. It's weird to have a male Cass. I kept being like, oh, it's a good
Yeah.
girl. And no, it's a good
Hey,
boy.
shout out to Overwatch, Cassidy.
Yeah, there you go. It's like Butch Cassidy,
Yeah. And the Sundance Kid.
I want to be
Which
the Sundance
one was the
kid.
Sundance Kid? If
The
you
one
had to pick
dancing
one of the
around. He's always dancing, that guy.
He's always dancing.
Well, I gave it to Wagner Moura. I think that
Yeah.
he's the clear,
No, for sure.
just the most
I was
watchable
going to,
person
but I thought it
in the
was
film.
funnier to give it to the dog.
Oh, I liked it. Okay, let's get to our ratings. So we already know what Rotten Tomatoes said, and if we prorate that to our rating system out of 5, it would be a 1. But I'm giving it a 2.
I'm
I
also
think-
giving it a 2.
I think it deserves the 2 points. It gets 1 point from me for the production design and some nice things to look at. Number 2 for some of the cast and making it not a total slog. And then it loses 3 points with the CGI slop, the terrible writing, and just the weird science stuff that's going on that I can't wrap my head around. So
Yeah, number 2 for
that's
me
where
is
I
like
go.
definitely never gonna watch it again.
Oh,
That's
no.
what my number 2 means.
Yeah.
So like,
Not
You know.
mad I watched it, but will not be queuing this up again. Will
Right.
not recommend that people go out of their way. But if you've got nothing to watch and you just want to watch something that other people have watched in the last couple weeks, you can at least talk about it. We found a way to spend almost 2
Yeah.
hours talking about this. Still not as long as the film was, though. So that's good.
if you're like me and you after a day of work you like to wind down, I'm a child of the 90s, play a couple of video games, and I work late, so my wife is normally asleep when I get home, and I don't have a lot of people to talk to, so I play a game, but my mind is racing, so you got to have some background while you're playing the game. This would be a fine movie to put on the side when you're playing your little game. You're paying attention to your game, and then you pause it every once in a while, check it. Okay, that's cool. And then you go back. That's the perfect way to enjoy this movie. Half watching it.
So now we get to the point where we got to decide what we're going to look at next week. And I do have a recommendation I want to float here
Yeah,
on the podcast.
I wonder if our recommendations are similar. What were you going to say?
Oh, well, the one that I have that I found that is a fairly new release is this. It's actually kind of combining 2 different nerdy things that we like to talk about. Well, one that we haven't talked about yet, but I think we would like to talk about. It's an anime, but it's Star Wars. and it's a new show on Disney Plus that came out of the. Are you familiar with Star Wars Visions? So in Star Wars Visions, it's an anthology series where they gave different animation studios one episode to tell their own Star Wars story. They're non-canon, but that's what Star Wars Visions was initially. This one is Star Wars Visions presents The Ninth Jedi, so it's a more extended series that's kind of an offshoot of that Star Wars Visions things, but it's in anime style. I haven't read too much into it about the studio and all that, but that is kind of something that I thought was kind of right in our lane. It's an animated property that I don't think a lot of the main podcasts are given much attention to, and some interesting things to talk about and maybe compare against some of the other animated things that we talked about recently. And it's Star Wars, which is fun.
Yeah, that is way better than what I was going to say.
Okay. What were you going to say?
Because I was just looking at like what was recently added to Netflix, and I saw that Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is on there.
Yeah.
And I was like, video games, that sort of
maybe when they're coming out
niche.
With Five Nights 3, we could do like a full, review.
We could watch
of
the
all
first
those.
2 and be like, hey,
because I haven't seen 2, but I don't want to do 2 without doing 1, and Have
you not seen 1 either?
I've seen 1.
Yeah. Okay.
I liked it.
I thought it was okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fine. Let me tell you, it's better than the last 2 movies we saw.
That's true. Yeah.
And it got a theatrical release, made some money.
Anything Matthew Lillard is in is a better.
Yeah, Lillard's in it, and I can never remember the name of the guy who's like the main guy, but he pops up in and around. I like seeing him. I don't think it's his best thing. He's actually in. I don't know if you were up on the hot Rachel Sennett show on HBO, I Love L.A., but he plays her boyfriend in that one, and that's probably my favorite thing I've seen him in. Yeah, so good to see him. He was also one of those Hunger Games people, right?
Yeah, the Hungry Games.
Yeah, he was the hungriest one, as I recall. So.
He was the hungriest hippo.
So that's what we'll do. We're going to go Star Wars Vision presents The Ninth Jedi. That's on Disney Plus. And I don't really know anybody else who's watching that. I haven't seen any of it, but I'll be excited to talk about it. It's got many episodes, but I'd say let's do the first 2 or 3 and see where we're at. If it's something we could just fly through, maybe we'll talk about the whole thing, but that is to be determined. So,
TBD.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Brothers Sinatra podcast. I'm Jack Sinatra.
And I'm Tyler Sinatra.
And we're
the Brothers Sinatra.
It's my brother building.
Hopefully we have some left over for the dog.